So I was flipping through this 1933 home decoration guide published by Better Homes and Gardens, and I found this. A 16-hue color wheel, but with 5 primary colors. The math ain't mathing. Look, there's like an extra color between red and yellow, but it's not orange. And I'd never seen another color wheel like this, so I had to know what was going on. What's your deal, Christine Holbrook? One reason the wheel is surprising is the 5 primary colors: red, yellow, green, blue, purple. In 1933, that could only come from the Munsell system. Other systems had 3 or 4 or 6 primaries. Only Albert Munsell landed on 5. He and his company developed a rigorous perception-based color system, and it had a few early adopters among printers and woodblock artists and painters, but Munsell was not what you'd expect to find in a home furnishings guide. Even more intriguing is the asymmetry. If you're going to use Munsell, why not start from 5 and then triple it to 15 hues? And if you're going to add a 16th hue, why wouldn't you add orange? The answer might have something to do with this woman. Let me explain. The influential painter Robert Henry created this portrait in 1911. Girl in Rose and Gray, Miss Carmel White. Later known by her married name, Carmel Snow, she became the influential editor-in-chief of Harper's Bazaar. See, her mother, Anne White, ran a successful New York dressmaking business, and Carmel was raised in that glamorous world. So was her big sister, Christine. Christine White wasn't the glamorous socialite. She just wanted to be a painter. So her mother made sure that she got the best training available. And it turns out, while Carmel White was posing for Henry in 1911, Christine was studying with him, and with George Bellows and William Merritt Chase. These Ashcan school painters were color theory fanatics. At this time, around 1911, Henry, Bellows, John Sloan, and others were obsessed with Hardesty Maratta's color system. That system included up to 144 premixed paints and a concept of harmonizing color chords. Christine's teacher, George Bellows, wrote a blurb for Maratta in 1913, saying, "I have for 4 years been an enthusiastic worker with your paint. I have taken every opportunity to let artists know about them." If Christine was in Bellows' studio, she absolutely encountered this color system. But look, Maratta's system, unlike Munsell's, had 6 principal hues. It was based on an analogy to the 12-tone scale in music, and his charts were triangular with 3 primaries at the corners. It would make so much sense for Holbrook's 1933 color wheel to be Maratta-derived, to have 6 primaries. And I think she may have started there. 6 hues tripled to 18, but she got rid of orange and a red-orange to align her complementary pairings with the perception-based Munsell system. E.C. Andrews, another early Munsell adopter in the print industry, explains in 1911, "I mentioned that besides giving the wrong complement, the Brewster red-yellow-blue theory allows yellow and red too large a proportion of the color circle, but by dropping out orange and using red, yellow, green, blue, and purple as the 5 fundamental pigments, note that I do not use the word primary, this defect is corrected." So clearly, this wheel adopts the Munsell system. The question remains, why? My guess is pure rage. Quiet, patient rage. Christine White volunteered in Europe with the Red Cross during World War I, where she fell in love with Dr. Frank Holbrook, and they married and moved to Iowa, where she spent about 10 years as a mom and homemaker, writing the occasional article and keeping abreast of decorating trends. Better Homes and Gardens had just been founded in 1922, the same year her 3rd child was born, and it was headquartered in Des Moines. So Christine would definitely have been an avid reader. Also at the time, the movement to elevate the discipline of home economics to a respected branch of the arts and sciences was in full swing. Authors like Laura Baldt at Columbia brought the scientific Munsell system into their teaching. Here in Baldt's textbook, Clothing for Women from 1916, you have Munsell complement pairs and Munsell notations. And Harriet and Veta Goldstein's influential home ec textbook, Art in Everyday Life from 1925, incorporated the Munsell system as well. I love this crazy chart. So, anyway, imagine you're Christine Holbrook and you're keeping up with all this discourse, and one day you send your kids off to school, you sit down with your coffee, and you crack open Better Homes and Gardens to find this. Harold Donaldson Eberlein's How to Combine Colors is a multi-page, very academic essay on traditional color theory, straight out of Goethe and 100 years out of date. To top it off, his tone is both dismissive of modern color theory and very condescending to the modern homemaker. He says, "The statement that red, yellow, and blue are the three fundamental, or primary, colors will probably be assailed promptly and flatly contradicted by those who keep abreast of scientific investigation. This is neither the time nor the place to enter into controversy." From Eberlein, an established authority on architecture and interior decoration, this is absolutely an attempt to put upstart women like the Goldsteins in their place. None of that home economics, color science fiddle-faddle. Eberlein follows this up with 2 more articles, which Better Homes and Gardens then compiled and sold as a booklet in 1931, titled Color Charts and Color Schemes. But Christine Holbrook wasn't going to let this slide. See, she had signed on as director of the new home furnishings department of Better Homes and Gardens. Her first byline appears in the September 1930 issue. She begins putting together booklets of her own, furniture balance and arrangement, walls, floors, and ceilings, and she builds up her credibility with the growing readership through hard work, through answering by letter all of the home decoration questions that were flooding into the magazine's offices. And then, a couple years later, February 1934, an ad runs for booklets and leaflets for all the family, and quietly tucked in among them, color charts and color schemes, recently revised and brought up to date. This is that revised edition by Christine Holbrook. She calls her approach to color the accepted and approved theory. She didn't get super technical. She didn't even mention Munsell. She kept it in plain language, but clearly she thought her readers did deserve to keep abreast of color science. In the end, I can't say for sure where Holbrook picked up the Munsell system, back in her painting days or later from the Goldsteins or another source, but I am sure that her time with the ashcan painters trained her to think critically about color and to be receptive to new ideas. And she was always, like her mother and sister, fiercely independent as a thinker. This is reflected in her unique take on Munsell, starting with a Maratta-like system and then deleting orange to better align visual complements, which, after all, are more relevant to interior design than the complements, secondaries, and tertiaries of 19th century pigment mixture, a fact that escaped Eberlein, whose outdated wheel Holbrook had quietly replaced. The funny thing is, the book is still called Color Charts, based on the fact that the original issue of that book had Eberlein's charts. He had multiple charts. He had 2 in this article and then 1 in the follow-up. And she replaced all of those with the 1 chart. She didn't change the title. And to me, that was kind of like the final twist of the knife, like, so there, Eberlein. I have taken your book and I have made it better. Anyway, thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you in the next Color Wheel Wednesday.